The individuals have talked about, figuring out what it is that our organization needs to do to sustain, and what it is that we need to, to do to make sure that we're still able to meet, to really meet the deliverables of our funders, and also make sure that our services are aligned with the National HIV/AIDS strategy, as well as high-impact prevention and other initiatives that we see coming down the pipe. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Just a little bit, real quick. If you would like, we really do encourage, participation in this. We really want to make sure we have a great dialogue going. So if you would like to, provide ask a question, or if there's a comment you would like to make, you're welcome to press *7 to speak. Or you can also, on the website, you can also raise your hand. Or if you would like to just to mute, just do *6. And then you can also use the chat box that's on the website as well, this webinar. Just for folks who are listening in, if you would like the access code 4560 is the access code for people. I'm sorry, it's 6753288. That's the access code for individuals who are struggling or having a hard time logging in. And again, our apologies with that. So, quick rundown about who we are, because I know we're running behind. We are the Latino Commission on AIDS, as I may have mentioned before. We were founded in 1990, and our main thing was really to provide a lot of advocacy for Latinos and Hispanics who are living in the United States. We understood that there was a lot going on during this time, and we were doing a lot of work with other populations and other ethnicities, but we really weren't doing much work with Latinos. So this is how we came about. And we have demonstrated a long history of community building on a national, regional, and local level. We provide 5 core areas in Hispanic behavior research, HIV prevention and health promotion, capacity building, HIV testing and access to care, health policy, and community mobilization. A little bit about our capacity building branch. We're funded by CDC, so any services that we provide are all free. We work with community-based organizations, and we also work with various communities that are impacted by this epidemic. So not only do we just work with Latinos, we also work with African American communities. We've also done some work with MSM communities. So we found ourselves doing a lot of work with other communities across the board. So just real quick, for those who would like to participate in this, if you want to just provide your name and the organization that you're with, we'll go ahead and take a minute or two to go ahead and do that. If anyone wants to just make mention of who you are so we'll know who we're speaking with.
This is Saray Finley with Legal Services of Southern Piedmont.
Thank you and welcome.
Hi, this is Irene Ovaya with City of El Paso.
Hi, welcome.
Hello.
This is Charles Shackelford with Stand Incorporated.
Hey, Charles. Thank you and welcome. We also have Wanda Acosta, who's the HIV Program Coordinator with the Migrant Health Center in Puerto Rico. I just got married out there 2 weeks ago. Hey. We also have Efren, I hope I get this name right, Bonilla, who's also with New York State Department of Health. Please let me know if I got it right. If I did not get it right, my apologies with that. My name gets messed up all the time, so I know what that feels like. And we have Shirley Mathis with the Urban League of Greater Dallas in North Central Texas. Howdy. And we have Holly, is it Gersling? With Annie Baby Can, or was it Annie Baby Can or Austin? I hope I got that right. So we want to just say welcome to...
We're Galay from Philadelphia.
Who is that again? I'm sorry.
Galay from Philadelphia.
Hi, how are you?
Hey.
Welcome. And we have Brian Moore, who's with ACRIS. I'm sorry, who's Brian Moore, who's with AIDS risk reduction who's an AIDS risk reduction worker out of Connecticut, and we have Kim. Oh, poor Kim. I'm sorry, Kim. We're going to try to get this working for you. We're going to find that out, but just be patient for us, and our apologies with that, Kim. So while we're working it out with Kim, we're going to get started. So this is pretty much the layout of what this webinar is going to look like. We're really going to talk about, first off, the basis of program design. We're also going to talk about community assessment and using community assessment data for program design. And this is really crucial, and this is why we start out with this particular webinar first, because we understand that community assessment is what we need to understand what's going on in the community. It's just a good way to know the trends, to understand our population much better, to also know what gaps in services are out there, who are our potential partners, and just a whole lot of stuff. When we're talking about program sustainability, community assessment is really crucial because this is what actually keeps a program solid to make sure that the service that we're providing actually is meeting the needs of the community, but also that it's making some level of impact as well. So here are a few learning objectives for this particular training. We're going to review program design basics, describe the purpose of community assessment, describe the process of reviewing existing data to justify the needs of the target population, design program activities. We would like for you all to kind of start thinking about how you would like to design program activities based on data collected from your own community assessments that you may begin to collect, as well as, conduct, and then describe how to identify partners that will bridge gaps in services and meeting the needs of the target population in which we serve, or you serve. So let's move on with our program design basics. So before we even start that, one thing that we should not forget about is the National HIV/AIDS Strategy and High Impact Prevention. So we know back in July 2010, President Obama signed the National HIV/AIDS Strategy, and this was huge in the HIV/AIDS world. And it was huge because it was really great because it really set nice benchmarks in regards to nice goals and objectives in regards to, what is HIV prevention, but also what is care going to look like moving forward. And then, of course, in August 2011, we had CDC who rolled out high impact prevention, which is a great response. So if you notice that the National HIV/AIDS Strategy provides more of the what, and high impact prevention provides more of the how. So when we look at reduced HIV incidence by 25%, we're noticing that there's going to be a need to do more HIV testing and linkage to care. Even when we look at ensuring that 85% of individuals diagnosed with HIV are linked to care within 3 months, that means that we need to make sure that we're providing programs that are effective and that really cater to those who are actually being linked into care. This also means ongoing training when we look at cultural competency or cultural responsiveness techniques, because we understand that there's different populations who are impacted by this epidemic, which means that we want to make sure that the services that we're providing to them are culturally appropriate. Also, we also talked about biomedical prevention, and we heard a lot about that. And so as a result of that, we noticed that CDC began to roll out more biomedical interventions such as PrEP and PEP and other biomedical options, which is a good way to ensure that we have individuals who are really taking more ownership in their care needs, but also for those individuals who are looking at other prevention methods, this is another option for them. So it's just a good way to provide more of a comprehensive menu of options for individuals who are high risk or individuals who are in care in need of care or other prevention services.
But it used to be involved with care. I didn't see it.
So when we talk about HIV, and just for a quick reminder, if you want to go ahead and mute your phone, you can just do *6.
The conference has been muted.
So when we look at HIV programs, a well-designed program would make most difference and achieve the most return on its investment and fit the organization priorities best as possible. So when we look at this, we want to make sure that our HealthComm is really impacting, the community in which we're serving. Also, we're looking at, changing behavior practice. So we want to make sure that, sexual behavior practices are at a minimum to low risk. We also, begin to look at, medical practices. So it's about, how we engage in our medical providers, how we engage in our case managers, what is going on when we are in that place, when we're in a setting and we're receiving information regarding to our own care needs. So when we look at this, we want to make sure that our HIV programs really touch on all of these, what we see in this circle, to where we can get that desirable health outcome that we've been looking for. So here are some elements of the program. So if you notice on here, what you see are various things. We see more of like an action plan, which provides more of a summary of how you achieve your results. Of course, intervention activities timeline, which is a great way just to make a flow chart in regards to how we are going to integrate services or how we're going to deploy services. Staffing plan, who works on what, who's doing what. We also want to think about what skill set our staff are bringing and make sure that it's appropriate for the intervention or for the services that our program is offering. Of course, budget, which is a huge thing, and I know some of us have experienced some budget cuts or because of the economic crisis have found ourselves really have been impacted by that. So we have to think about, can we afford it? And so we, when we look at the National HIV strategy and high impact prevention, what we're noticing is that even the way in which we provide services have changed. And so one thing I always tell people is that we want to make sure that we know a lot about high-impact prevention and that we know a lot about the National HIV strategy so that we can ensure that the services provided are aligned with that, which really ups our chances of getting more money for our services. The next thing is collaboration, which is who is a partner? Again, when we talk about community assessment, one thing that we're doing is identifying resources that are out there, identifying gaps in services, and we want to make sure that we are providing more of a holistic or comprehensive type services to our clients. And so one thing that plays a huge part is that collaboration or partnership. One thing I know is that CDC has talked a lot about program collaboration and service integration, which is PIPC. And so when we talk about collaboration, not only are we looking at collaborating internally with other programs that our organizations may offer if we're a large organization, but even if we are a large organization and we're providing a lot of services internally, it may be a need for us to look at who are providing services outside of our organization and what services are provided and how can we be able to partner with them to ensure that we're providing the best services possible to our clients. Because we know they come in with competing priorities. And the last thing is evaluation plan, where we look at process evaluation and outcome evaluation. And so what this is all about is really looking at how effective are the services we're providing. Also, are our clients, or those who are receiving the services, do they feel it's appropriate for them and is actually meeting their needs? And as I talked before, we're looking at that we know that a lot of our clients or those who access our services come in with competing priorities. So we want to make sure that we're to provide the best services possible. And by having a great evaluation plan, it's a good way to really check in and see what we're doing right. But if we're not, we can also identify areas of improvement and be able to kind of work on those particular areas. So when we come around and implement this program again, we're making sure that the program is meeting the needs of our clients or meeting the needs of the community in which we serve. So basic aspects of a program design, it's about assessing the need, of course, and so that means like what does our target population need? And this is why we do a lot of community assessment. And one form of community assessment is community mapping, and we're going to talk about that here in a moment. Another thing is outcome development. Like how do we determine what we want to achieve? This is why we have to set those program goals and objectives. But by doing that community assessment, it gives us leeway in regards to what are the needs, and it also gives us more insight as to what it is that we seek to achieve based upon the data that we collected from that community assessment, which makes it easy for us to set those program goals and objectives. Identifying resources. This is all about, again, what do we have the capacity to do? And this is where we have to do our own organizational assessment. We have to kind of get a feel for what is the capacity of our organization, what resources do we have, also who are our partners and how can they contribute to that, who are other community stakeholders, what about our staff, and what skill sets do they offer, and how can that really enhance the services in which we're providing within our organization? And then benchmarking, and all about how should we address the needs we identify. So this is where we're going to start strategizing best practices, appropriate behavioral theories, and sometimes you may see this happen within your own strategic planning. You may also have, maybe program retreats or board retreats or what have you, where you can really go into and start setting these benchmarks based upon the data that you collected from your own community assessment. So, basic aspects of a program design, logic modeling and assumptions. Logic model is really great because it really lays out, what this program is, what it looks like. It really lays out more of the resources that are needed, more of your outcomes, what activities you plan to implement, or what activities you plan or service you plan to offer. And based on that, what can be the immediate outcome, what can be the intermediate outcome, as well as what can be the long-term outcome. This is also great when we're looking at evaluation because you can use the logic model to kind of help you, once you begin to implement the services, you can use that logic model to kind of go back and see how to tie back into the evaluation of the program. And you can do some check and balances there. So is the program working? And this is where you can use some formative and summative evaluation. The other part is implementation. So how will we do the work? Who's going to do it? When is this going to occur? Where is it going to occur? For how long? This is when we have to start brainstorming and looking at all of that. And a great implementation plan can lay all of that out for you. It actually goes hand in hand with your logic model as well. And it's great when we start doing our evaluation where you can go in and start doing those tweaking when you start ready to start implementing the program a second time around, or however many times around you're looking to implement it. But using an implementation plan and logic model is just a great layout and a great plan of action to see where you're going and what you plan to do with your work or with your program. And then choosing your focus, more so around HIV risk. And so from this community assessment, one thing that you can really begin to understand more of actually community risk behaviors. And it doesn't sometimes have to deal more so with sexual risk. We can also look at other contextual factors when we're doing these community assessments. And so if we are talking about sexual risk or any other HIV risk in particular, we're looking at unprotected anal or vaginal intercourse, of course sharing of unclean syringes and work, and then maternal-child contact where we're looking at the pregnancy and if a mother is HIV positive, if breastfeeding, when we're talking about breastfeeding, because of course we know that breast milk is a fluid that carries HIV. And then, of course, the risk factors. And so when we're talking about HIV, assessing the HIV risk of our target population is great because it allows us to look at what the program can, what the program can actually do for our target population. Another thing is we want to also have an understanding more around the national, state, local priorities and do they match your community needs. And so one thing I always tell people, if they're not involved with their community planning group, this may be a good time to get involved or at least attend a few meetings because they usually have some of the information where they begin to prioritize population. And that prioritization happens when they begin to look at the epidemiology, the epi data to kind of get a feel for what's going on, who's most at risk, and all that stuff. And so in order to identify the social determinants and behavior determinants and HIV risk behaviors and all of that, this is why we have to do a community needs assessment because that can also let you know what have influenced those who are most at risk. So again, when we talk about contextual factors, that can be someone's socioeconomic status, poverty tends to play a part, education, mental health, all racism or any type of phobia that we may see out there. Sometimes those contextual factors have a huge impact when we're talking about transmission of HIV. And so we always want to make sure that when we're doing community needs assessment that we're collecting that type of information to get a feel for what's happening in our community so we know what we're dealing with. Because as I may mention before, a lot of our clients or the target population in which we serve do come in with competing priorities. And so by understanding those by doing this community needs assessment, it gives us a better understanding of those competing priorities, and then it allows us to know who should we partner with, what services should we have in place, and what this program fully looks like. So I hope I wasn't talking too fast, and again, apologies for the late start, but are there any questions at the moment? If so, please feel free to push *7 to go ahead and have that chat with us, or you can chat with us in the chat box just by raising your hand as well, and we can identify you and see what questions that you may have. But any questions at the moment?
The conference has been unmuted.
Sorry, I unmuted everyone, so I hope someone may have a question. All right. So again, once again, I apologize for speaking fast. We're going to move on to the next piece of this. Here we go.
The conference has been muted.
There you go. So what is community assessment? Community assessment is the first step in creating and implementing a new program, and it provides a better understanding of our community and experiences and needs of our target population, which we already expressed before. It also informs the organization, recruitment, marketing strategies, as well as if there needs to be a use of social media and other type of efforts. So again, this allows us to really look at it lays down the foundation of what this program is going to look like and where do we need to start moving to really make sure that the service we're providing are as effective as possible and really making impacts in the community. Community assessment key questions that we need to ask are: who is our target population? Where can our target population be found? What are the needs of the target population? What's the best way to market services to our target population? So, for instance, when we're talking about MSM, it's really a broad term, and they can really identify any and everybody under that particular category. So, when we talk about who is our target population, this is the need for us to really be specific in that target population, because then it allows us to really understand the where, the what as we're doing this community assessment. And so here's some steps in the community assessment. And one thing that we always tell people, and we have this upside-down triangle, because we understand that when you're doing community assessment, you're starting broad, and then you're going all the way down to really get to the specifics of what this program could potentially look like, based on the data you collected from the community assessment. So we already know the need to kind of collect epi data. I'm pretty sure as we've written grants before, we know that that's something that they ask for. They ask for what is the epi data in your local jurisdiction. And so this is key. From there, we want to look at the definition of our target population. And again, we want to be specific around what is our target population. So as I talked about before, I know sometimes we say just MSM, and again, that's really broad, but we really want to get specific and really get to the nitty-gritty of our target population. Also, survey of internal and external staff. By being able to really get a feel for our staff and what they know about our community, especially when we're talking about frontline workers or those who actually provide direct service to our community, that they know the ins and outs of the community. And sometimes those individuals, I know from my own experience, some of the individuals that we have on staff, they've actually been individuals who come directly from the community. So at one point they access our services. And so as I mentioned before, they know the ins and outs of the community. So it's great to always pull from them and get a feel for what do they know about what's going on in their communities. Community mapping and observation, I'm really going to go much further into that. But again, it's about really going out there and getting a feel for what's going on in the community. So this is when we have to go out into community and just do some observation. That means just looking around and just seeing what's around in the community. It can just even be the smallest thing. If we notice just like a convenience store there, it's about just seeing what does that convenience store offer, and why is that convenience store is like a viable business in our community. Resource mapping, again, tapping into what other resources are out there, what other organizations or or nonprofits that are out there, what work are they doing, and how they're reaching the same population in which we're trying to reach. Spot interviews is really great. Again, after you've done the community mapping, doing the spot interviews is awesome because it allows you now to begin to engage individuals within that community where you've done some observation. And then surveys of target population, again, kind of goes great with the spot interviews. So this is just another valuable information that you'll be collecting. Gatekeeper interviews and key informant interviews are also awesome, especially with the gatekeeper interviews, because this is your opportunity to really now establish a rapport with someone who has insight to the community in which you're trying to serve. And so they're the ones that can really give you that information that you need, along with key informant interviews, where you have individuals who represent that particular population, individuals who may live in that community, who can really give you more insight as to what's needed. And then from their focus group, and I'm pretty sure we've all done some level of focus group before, or participated in focus group, but this gives you the opportunity to get a feel for, it gives them a chance to have a dialogue, and you just observe that dialogue and facilitate that conversation. But this is a chance to really just listen and get a feel for what it is that the community needs. How does our target population see the community in which they live in? What services they feel should be offered. So by looking at these steps in the community assessment, like this is some good data you'll be collecting, and this can really shape the way in which your program can run, and also allow for you to look at the need to implement certain things, like certain activities, or provide key services that will really keep your community engaged and keep them wanting to access those services. Also with community assessment, the thing I want to make mention of that it's an ongoing thing. So because we just do it one time, especially if we're doing it to try to secure funding, we need to understand that when we're talking about program sustainability, that community assessment is an ongoing thing, that we have to do this quite often because a lot of things change. We have new trends, we have various things that happen in our communities, and when those new trends begin to occur, we want to know about that, and so that's why we want to continuously do these community assessments. Investigating existing data. So with investigating existing data, as I talked about before, it's just research existing data and other information resources that will provide an overview of our target population. So for example, we can look at the current rates and location of HIV infection. We also looking at areas in which of our city and state that have high arrest rates of drug use, rates of hospitalization for mental illness. Like all of these are key information because it really shapes what our program can look like. It also gives us more insight to who we're providing services to and what are those competing priorities. I know there's certain sites where you can get HIV/AIDS rates by zip code. And so if you are providing services in a key area of your city, by understanding what is the HIV/AIDS infection rate within that particular zip code or zip code surrounding the area in which you're providing the services is really great because it allows you to understand more about what's the epidata looking like, and also it allows you to kind of ask those questions around why do we have such high rates within this particular zip code? So then we may want to start exploring more of those contextual factors. And so I love how we have on here about looking at high arrest rates for drug use because that sometimes play a part, and also rates of hospitalization for mental illness. Although these are examples, but sometimes we talk about contextual factors. We're looking at these things as well too. So target population. If you look here, this is something that is data from 2009. When we look at subpopulations with the largest numbers of estimated new HIV infections. So this is an example of what investigating existing data looks like. So let's say if we wanted to do work with white MSM. Well, now we have this data from a national level to get a feel for to get a feel for how HIV is impacting white MSM on a national level. But then from there, what you want to do is start, if you're going to provide it on a local level, you may want to start getting some, data within the state, but also data within your own city to understand what does this look like. And also you may want to compare to the data, your local data, to the national data to get a feel for, if it mirrors it or if there's like a disproportion or anything like that. So this is just a good way to kind of get a feel for that. Sometimes I always tell people it's also best to look at just even the general population, and then that way you can kind of do a comparison to get a feel for how do they represent in regards to the general U.S. population, but also what does that make up when we're talking about HIV. So again, investigating existing data is really crucial because it sets the groundwork as you begin to do more community assessment.
So now we'll go into data and physical indicators. So when you're collecting information for your community mapping process, you want to look at indicators. And indicators are information that suggest specific activity that's occurring in the location. So if you're thinking about what the data indicators are, you'll be looking at things such as high alcohol sales or high rates of hospitalizations for mental illness. And if you're looking at a physical indicator, those are things that you see in the environment that signals what type of behavior is occurring, such as used condoms or abandoned homes, and those are all very helpful. I'm going to get a little bit closer to the phone because I'm seeing that some of you can't hear me. Hope this is better. And so one of the examples we're going to take a look at is this physical indicator in this photo. So what you see here is a farmer's market. And the type of indicators you see, you're aware that the community has access to locally grown food.
Also, it's just a good way with the physical indicators, especially from this. I mean, it gives you more insight around, it allows you to get a feel for like the day-to-day, I guess, norms within your community, and how do people, what time of day they show up. It also allows you to get a feel for, like, do they come out more so during the daytime? Do they come out more in the evening? Is it more of more of a presence in the in the warmer months as opposed to the colder months? It also get a feel for how involved are they when there are community events happening in their own community. So you can use physical indicators for a lot of stuff. It's like, for instance, small things, like there's a lot of littering going on, and that lets you know, give you some insight to your community. So it can be small things to even like graffiti, all those particular things, because it lets you know what's happening in the community and what are some of the norms in the community.
And so, let's see. Community mapping. What is community mapping? So it's basically a process using simple graphics such as drawings, pictures, and sketches to collect and present information to help you understand about the community. So when we're collecting information during our community mapping in the past, we'll walk around, drive around. Basically, you can do anything where you can observe the individuals in the community in their own environment. When you're collecting the information, it's presented through various formats, such as pictures, sketches, and it's presented in a way that makes it easier to understand the information. And this information can show trends or relationships that are typically difficult to understand. So we'll show you an example of a sample community mapping training that we did, and this took place in El Paso, Texas. And here the community mapping map shows us there's a key on the side, and it shows us where the shopping centers are, the physician's office, playgrounds, and so on. And basically the point of this is the map should reflect the goals of your program. So we will go into more detail about what kind of information you would be collecting and what you should be observing while you're performing a community mapping exercise. So this is an example of NC3. They are a nonprofit organization, Network Center for Community Change, and they're based out in Louisville. And
you said it right.
Anshe's from Louisville. So this NC3 basically tells a story with data and maps. They use a process that's powered by neighborhood residents, and they identify assets and properties that need attention. And then these maps that are created are then used by the residents and policymakers as a tool to create change within their community. And the core components of community mapping are the collection of indicators, the data and what's happening in the field while you're out there, community observation, spot interviews, and key informant interviews. And when mapping, we have to always remember who our target population is, and then we have to define what the high-risk behaviors are. And after understanding that, it becomes much easier to base the maps on the goals of your program. So some important aspects of community mapping, when making notes, just describe what you see. When you're doing spot interviews, for example, don't interrupt until your informant has completely finished. You want to identify places that will be useful to observe, YMCAs or community settings where a lot of the community members congregate. And you want to have a reason for being there. You want the place to be a natural place where you could ask questions and feel comfortable, and you want to make a note of the entire picture, figure out what your first impressions are and what the physical layout of the area are, and always be safe while you're in the field doing this. And when thinking about the purpose, thinking about the who, what, when, where, and why will help you provide you with richer information for your community mapping. Think about the age, gender, ethnicity, how many people do the people you're interviewing know each other, what's their reason for being there, what time of the day is this happening, is there a specific order that things are happening, and all of this information, if you think about it, if there's a deeper analysis of what you're observing, then it provides a much better map for your collection. Resource mapping is another part of community mapping that involves internal interviews. So these are questions that you can ask the staff within your own organization, people who are aware of the community, people such as outreach workers and case managers. They're experts of the target population, and they'd be useful in your community mapping process. You can also ask external questions to ask the staff or partnering organizations who have been in the area or know about the area. So this is an example of resource mapping where we just use Google Maps, and all of the colored are the points of interest that we've collected.
Yeah, and it also lays out more so just around, like, as Tal may mention, like points of interest. And so what's great about that, it just allows you to look at what resources are available and what services are they offering. So we're talking about collaboration, which is really key, and we hear that a lot now, especially when we're going through this economic hard times. In regards to collaboration, what that does is allows us to really start bridging some of those services to make sure that we're working to meet those competing priorities that our clients are expressing that they have. And so we already know sometimes that some of our clients may not want to hear about those HIV prevention messages or don't want to adhere to their care needs until some of those competing priorities or their other needs have been met. And so one thing that you can do as you do your community mapping, you can use that as a way to do to collect. You can do your resource mapping with that, but you can also go like to various like websites. There's like what websites can you go to? Like, for instance, this one's Google. You can even use, like,
you could use Yahoo Map. You can
Right.
use any sort of map. So Charles asked the question, how can you create and use this resource mapping? So what we've done, if you go into Google Maps, which is a great, amazing free software or whatever, you can actually type in health. You can type in a hospital, or you can type in a community-based organization that you're looking for, and then there are options where you can click list, other things in the area, and it's just a button that you click, and that'll put other what you need on the same map that you're looking at. I hope that answered the question. Any other questions for now?
We also want to mention that we do offer like a full day training, and sometimes we've done like a day and a half training or a 2-day training on community mapping, where we even go out in the community and do mapping, during this training. A lot of fun, one of my favorites, so feel free to, contact us or reach out to us, and we'll provide you with our contact information at the end of this training if you want to access, capacity building assistance from us, or if you would like for us to come to you and offer a free training, or if we offer one in-house and you all come to us. Our trainings are for free, and our services are free as well, so feel free to come, reach out to us if there's something that interests you so far. Any other questions?
So now we'll go into the interviewing process. When you're going out to do community mapping, who you'd be interviewing. And you would interview key informants, gatekeepers, hard-to-reach population, individuals who are working or living and are part of the community that you're targeting. And the types of interviews are spot interviews and key informant and gatekeeper interviews. And I know Erica asked a specific question about gatekeeper interviews and key informant interviews, which we can talk about in detail now. So spot interviews are brief interviews with community members. They're not gatekeepers, but they're anyone that you encounter in the community. So, for example, the last community mapping that I did was out in Alabama, and we were trying to gauge awareness of a particular CBO in the area. So we went to local libraries, we went to the YMCA, and we just stopped and asked spot interviews. We just asked a librarian, we asked community members coming and going from the YMCA to ask them, do you know about this organization? So that's just an example of a spot interview. You can use, it's a good idea to use a short script beforehand so that while you're collecting the data, it's consistent throughout, and you can follow up with questions, but while doing this, it would be nice to have a short script. And so gatekeeper interviews are conducted with people who live in the community and they know other people within the community. And they're important because they can help gain access to target populations. For example, if you're interested in learning more about HIV risk factors, then you can, and influencing factors, you can ask bus drivers or elderly women or...
you can also maybe talk to, I'm trying to think. Like, you can talk to any particular, any community member. For instance, I know, like, within the gay community, like a priest. Like,
someone who has access to the population.
Exactly.
And the difference between a gatekeeper and a key informant, so a key informant, for example, a key informant is someone who understands the target population. So just maybe a more specific example, if you were to talk to a janitor or something, or I talk to the librarian who would understand the community within that area but doesn't necessarily have access to your target population the same way a priest would have access to the target population. So key informants and gatekeepers sound similar, but they're not always the same.
Right.
I I hope I'm not going too fast. We just want to check in again to see if you guys have any additional questions for us right now.
And someone asked, are those trainings offered online? I do know that we are looking to start doing more web-based trainings, but currently, no. We just do the webinars, and the webinars usually last about an hour and a half to 2 hours. But if you are interested in a training, you're more than welcome to reach out to us, and we can, have that conversation and see how we can customize this training based upon your own needs.
So moving along, now that you've collected all of the information, you want to figure out what you're going to do, and you want to use this data in a way that's helpful for you. So So the data that you collect, it can be either quantitative or qualitative data. And with quantitative data, it's always easier to count. You can do a quality assurance check. You can use statistical analysis to answer the questions. While qualitative data, you need to develop a coding scheme, and then you have to code. And while you're analyzing, you need to consider what it means, interpret, and then think about the reliability of your data. So
okay, so match findings with your organizational assessment. And so this is where you want to start looking at the organizational experience of the target population. Also start identifying more of the staff training needs. What space do you need to ensure that you're able to provide whatever service that your program is going to provide. The type of programs that organizations are able to conduct. Sometimes, I've seen where organizations have been able to, to see a funding opportunity, and it may not necessarily, the organization may not have the fullest capacity to do this, or they may not have staff in place, or may have not been trained and may not know as much of the target population. And so this is why you want to do that organizational assessment, because you want to make sure that you're able to find funding opportunities that's going to meet your needs and that's going to meet the needs of the community in which you're serving, but also that you know that the organization has the capacity to fulfill that grant obligation if you are to be rewarded. Also look at financial resources. What other, funding sources do you have? What other financial resources can you tap into to ensure that you're able to provide those particular services? You also want to make sure you get the staff and other stakeholders buy-in. It's important that we get their buy-in, because if we don't have their buy-in, the services may not be as effective because they feel like they're not able to do the work. And this includes, your directors, your frontline staff, your board members, your community advisory board. You want to have that dialogue with them and see if this is a good fit. Collaborations and partnerships, again, we talked about that a lot. But again, by doing your own organizational assessment, you understand the capacity of your organization. And by you doing that community assessment, you'll be able to identify what resources are out there and what other organizations are doing the work that are meeting those competing priorities, but also what organizations may be doing similar work as you, because you don't want to duplicate services, and you don't want to create this competitive environment where it creates a healthy, work environment across the board in your own community. And so also look at, from that, you want to start looking at who do you want to recruit as a potential partner, and also who you want to recruit for referral network. So these are all crucial, and I often tell people, if you do the community assessment, maybe what you can do is look at a way of doing some coalition building. So maybe start a task force or a coalition where you all can now have that referral network. So it's easier where you can maybe meet once a month or whatever to get a feel for what's going on in your community, and then and how can you all work really great together to make sure that if a client that we may see, they may need service from another organization, that you all can already have your own referral process for that. Any questions that we may have? Another thing I want to make mention is that when we talk about program sustainability, one thing we're talking about is that how can we make sure that this program really stays around and to where it actually meets the needs of the community. And so I know sometimes we've been in a situation where we feel like what we're doing is working, and then when we turn around to apply for the next funding cycle, we find ourselves not getting refunded. So, in doing these community assessments, it allows you to really get a feel for what are the needs in the community. It also allows you to get a feel for how do you need to tweak your services, because trends, they're going to be ongoing trends, which means that we have to do some ongoing tweaking to our services to make sure that we're providing the best services possible. This is also a good way to identify who are your partners out there to make sure that you can have sustainable working relationship with your community partners. So these are all great ways to look at how can you sustain that, how can you sustain your program. Also, community needs assessment allows you to maybe tap into, maybe police officers, politicians, other folks who you can get on board to support, the program that your organization is actually running. And having that happen, allows them to have more buy-in to it, and allows them to really want to find ways to also support you in sustaining your program as well. So again, community assessment is that initial piece when we're talking about program sustainability, because it is an ongoing thing, and it's something that we're going to do throughout us implementing these particular services or programs. And so it's just a good way to get a feel for what those trends are and what are those ongoing needs and competing priorities of the clients in which we're serving. Any questions that we may have? All right. As I may mention before, if you want to request capacity building, you're more than welcome to contact Lena Cherkus, who's actually our program manager with Latino Commission on AIDS, our CBER program manager. And here's her email address, which is lcherfas, CHERFAS, for those who may not see it, at latinoaids.org. You may also contact us at area code 212-675-3288, extension 347. Again, as we may mention with our capacity building assistance program, this is a national program of ours, so it allows us to work with organizations and communities throughout the United States. So even if we're providing a training in-house, and it's something that you would like to have at your organization, or it's something that you want to have with your own coalition, that's something that you can also contact us. We can have that conversation, and we can walk you through that process of requesting our services to where we can actually come to you as well. So we do meet you where you are. And it's all free, just in case folks didn't know. And free is my favorite word. So, as I forgot to mention, at the end of this webinar, when you close out, you'll be directed to SurveyMonkey to fill out an evaluation. We would love to hear from you. We know we had some technology issues at first, and so we want to make mention that you're more welcome to put that in the evaluation as well. We want all honesty, because this is only helping us make sure that we provide the best webinars as possible, and making sure that it's something that's actually really good and not something that's a bore or a waste of your time. Kim asks, what are some of the most common mistakes people make when doing community assessment? That's a pretty good question.
I wouldn't say that there are really any mistakes. I think the key component of a community assessment is focused on observation.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess you may miss something when we're talking about deeper analysis of observations. If you're not thinking about all of those when, where, why, what in advance, and while you're out there into the field, then you may miss a few important observations.
And another thing is, if you follow the steps in the community assessment, so as Hal was mentioning, you may miss a few things, and so, when you begin to do those deeper analysis, it allows you to kind of catch those things that you initially missed, or that you didn't even see at all, And especially when you get all the way down to start doing more of the spot interviews and the surveys and the gatekeeper interviews and key informant and focus groups. And when you really get down there, you're going to start getting a lot of those information. I think it's going to be hard for you to miss that, especially in the focus group, because I feel like that's when you really get more of that natural, organic dialogue between the folks who are in that focus group. And they're really telling you more about what's happening in their communities, how they see the community, what do they feel is missing, what's lacking. We did something like this in Arkansas before, where we were looking at, we did a focus group throughout the entire state of Arkansas. So we're in 5 regions, and we were really looking at how can we create the social media platform to where we can get more MSM, Black MSM, to access services in the state. And so when we began to do that, what happened is we began to look at some of those contextual factors and also how folks in Arkansas view the LGBT community as a whole, how they view Arkansas. So they began to talk a lot about the racism. They began to talk about how they don't see leadership or how they don't see people that look like them in position of leadership. And so that in itself informed us of what this, that gave us some good information that we can use, and we reported that to the state of the Arkansas Department of Health, that, this is what the community wants to see. And so we know that now they're working to start putting some of those things in place to make sure that they're able to really have a better engagement with, Black MSM in the state of Arkansas.
And I think it's also important to remember that you do not have to collect all of your information on your first community mapping assessment. It's a process, and it occurs in steps. So once you've defined your target population, say you're out there in the community and you don't get as many spot interviews or as you would like, then it's normal to go back into the community and continue this process until you feel like you've collected all the information that you need.
And also, another thing is that I know sometimes when we're doing these, like maybe an interview or if we're doing those focus groups, we want to get involved in those conversations, and we want to kind of find a way we want to get involved. And sometimes it may not be best to do that because now you're influencing, you're going to start having an influence on the way in which, and what they're expressing to you. And so you want to make sure that the dialogue is something that's natural and organic, which means that we want to just sit back and really listen because they're the experts of their own community. And so we're just trying to learn more about that community. So I know one mistake I've seen often is that we try to have a dialogue where we come across as the expert when we shouldn't because we don't know much about the community. And I hope to answer your question, Kim. Does anyone have any other questions for us? As I mentioned before, please remember to fill out our evaluation that's at the end. We really would appreciate that. And we say thank you so much. I'm Anshe Hall.
I'm Tal Bowie.
And we are with the Latino Commission on AIDS. And we say thank you so much for participating in our webinar. We look forward to seeing you 2 weeks from now, July 25th, where we're going to look at situational leadership. So based upon some of the data that we've done, how can we use situational leadership and how does that play a part in program sustainability? So we hope that you all participate in that. And I know when we do it next time on July 25th, we'll start on time and won't have these issues because we got it down pat and we're good to go. So we do say thank you, and we offer our apologies for what happened earlier. Thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Please stand by.